Show of hands, or I guess by show of emojis, how many of you are familiar with Lyric or have heard of Lyric before? Okay, brilliant. So I'm seeing some faces who are very familiar with what they do or maybe more introduced, and also some people who are learning about them for the first time, which is what we love to do with resources. So joining us from Lyric today, we have Madison Ellis. So Madison is a SoCal born and recent Bay Area resident who graduated from Cal State Polytech University, Pomona with a BA in philosophy with an emphasis on law and society. Madison doesn't consider herself a philosopher. Her philosophical background has trained her to approach everyday life with curiosity and consideration. And she brings this training to Lyric, where she uses it in her youth career development experience, supporting young people in their employment journeys. As an ally of the LGBT plus community, Madison believes her most important role is to listen and uplift LGBT voices, and aims to help young people have transformative and empowering employment experiences. In her free time, Madison enjoys relaxing with her pup, Colby Jack, and finding new shows to binge on Netflix. So if you are an avid fan of anime, K-dramas, or murder mysteries, Madison is that person for you. But without further ado, I would love to highlight the fact that Lyric is an LGBT space that works with youth 12 to 24. And given that we are a DV association, you might be thinking, other than that, I'm the youth coordinator, why they're in space with us. But I feel like it's really important that we highlight places that build positive connections for youth. And Lyric is one of those spaces. So LGBT youth face the same amount of dating violence, so 1 in 3, as heterosexual relationships, but might actually be more likely to experience um, those kinds of violence or pushback from their peers, which makes spaces like this all the more important, and also spaces to start developing those healthy relationships and know that resources and community are available for them. So I really want to highlight the fact that Lyric has all of those, as well as the fact that they have a youth drop-in space, which if any of you work with youth, having safe places for them to be is definitely something that we always are excited to find. So Madison, I'm going to turn that over to you.
Thank you for the lovely introduction, Taylor. I'm just going to start by sharing my screen. Okay, can everybody see it? Okay, perfect. So I am Madison Ellis. I'm the drop-in program manager at Lyric. My pronouns are she, her. My why for why I do this work is I really value youth empowerment, and I really want to make sure that youth have a safe space where they can be themselves and receive services, um, and make sure that we are building their futures. So I will just get started. Okay, background. So a little bit about our background. Our mission is to build a community and inspire positive social change through education, enhancement, career trainings, health promotion, and leadership development with lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and questioning youth, their families, and allies of all races, classes, genders, and abilities. We have multiple programs at Lyric. Over the years, we've had a few different iterations of programming. So this is what we're currently offering. Even though we do serve youth 13 to 24, each program is going to have its own qualifications for eligibility. So as we get to each program, we'll talk about what those qualifications are. But just a quick rundown of what our programs are. We have our drop-in center, as Taylor mentioned, our after-school drop-in program, our Q group program, the career development program, housing, HAP, which stands for Health Access Program, and then our youth advocates. So to start with, our drop-in center, our service hours are 10 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. for services. So that's if you're trying to access any of the listed programs. And then our after-school drop-in program is from 3:30 to 6 p.m. And then our community groups are from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. So Lyric is proudly located in the Castro, which has been historically queer, but also a little bit historically unfriendly to youth. So Lyric really wants to make sure that queer youth of all backgrounds feel like they have a claim to the Castro, and that's why our drop-in center is located here. And I'm realizing I don't have the address on the slides. So our address is 566 Castro Street for our drop-in center. Our drop-in center acts as the first point of entry for youth who are seeking services at LYRIC. Any of these programs can be accessed here, and they all have drop-in hours. So between 10 a.m. to 3:30 p.m., Monday through Friday, youth can just stop on by if they're looking for access. In addition to those programs, we have our clothing closet, which features clothing of all sizes, as well as shoes, undergarments, socks. We also have gender affirming undergarments like gaffers or gaffs. We have safe sex supplies for all ages. That includes condoms, insertable condoms, dental dams. We also have pregnancy tests. We have menstrual products of all kinds for all ages, and we have hygiene products. So we have a bunch of travel size products like deodorants, shampoos, conditioners, body washes, toothpaste, toothbrushes, anything that you might need, as well as blankets and cold weather kits. So a lot of resources located in our drop-in center. Our after-school drop-in. The after-school drop-in program is a recreational time where youth can find community, eat snacks, participate in activities, and exist without any expectations on them. So those hours are 3:30 p.m. to 6 p.m. Some highlights are our weekly events and activities, our workshops. Um, we have peer youth that will be offering guidance and support to some of our younger youth because our after-school drop-in does tend to skew a bit younger, with middle school and high school students being the majority of the people who are attending. We also have food, snacks, and drinks. We have arts and craft supplies. We have a queer literature library, and then we have Chromebooks for youth who might want to get some schoolwork done, but don't have a device to do that on. So even though the name is after school drop-in and we do skew younger, this is still available to any youth up to 24 to just come and hang out and have fun at Lyric. So our after school drop-in program has a calendar of upcoming events and programs every single month. So youth can stay up to date on what's going on. This is our August calendar here on the left. You can see these calendars on our Instagram. And then an example of an event that we do have coming up on August 30th is our movie night. So we'll be watching Killer Body Count. We have free popcorn and also free sexual wellness supplies. It's free to enter. That'll be 3:30 to 6 p.m. Just come on by. And then if you're ever curious about what other events are going on, our Instagram is going to be the best way to find out. Another program that Lyric has that is school-based is called our Q groups. So Q groups are an educational and recreational safe space for queer youth in SFUSD middle schools and high schools. Our Q groups take place at the school site once a week at a number of different schools throughout the year. Q groups do require a permission slip from a parent. And we are especially focused on youth who are BIPOC, who are socioeconomically disadvantaged, who may be in the closet, or who may have little to no queer community or support systems outside of the school. It's also really important to note that Q groups are confidential. So they are not a club that just anybody can attend. If a youth is interested in attending a Q group at their school, they should speak with their wellness advisor who will give them the information for the Q groups. We do this just to make sure that this is a safe space. There's no chance of youth being outed and everyone feels comfortable to be themselves. It's also very important to note that Q groups are not open to allies. So to be in a Q group, you do have to identify as queer. If you're comfortable disclosing that to the wellness coordinator, you would have to let them know that. Okay. a little bit more information on Q groups. So our facilitators do cover a wide range of LGBTQ related topics that are interwoven into their curriculum. They create activities and exercises for youth concerning identity formation and personal development, becoming more confident in your identity as a queer person, queer history, and more. Sessions are often guided by the interests and the curiosities of the youth, and they're based around issues that the youth are more interested in knowing about, as well as challenges that they could be personally facing. Some of the activities other than the curriculum that happen in Q groups are a field trip to community parks and queer landmarks. Guest speakers from our organization will be coming in, so we keep it to our organization again for that confidentiality aspect. But we have people from our organization who come in and speak, and then facilitating discussions about gender affirming care, sexual health, and the trans experience. Okay, so our career development program is a cohort-based internship program that aims to empower transitional age, queer, and trans youth, as well as their allies. So this program is open to everyone. Everyone who is either LGBTQ plus or an ally. The Career Development Program offers participants tailored career guidance, a safe and supportive environment for queer youth, skill enhancement, networking opportunities, community building, and we do pay for the time. So we pay $18.96 an hour. Currently, our internship is 10 hours a week. So career development youth can also play a key role in hosting our after-school drop-in program by acting as youth ambassadors for the space. And together with the career development coordinator and the drop-in coordinator, they can offer peer-to-peer facilitation. So we really love the peer-to-peer facilitation model because we feel that the best people to understand youth and to serve youth and to make sure that their needs are being met are youth themselves. And by giving our youth this role, we are also giving them very valuable skills to use in their careers going forward. So we really love this model. We actually have a career development program that's going to be starting on August 26th. So we're still doing interviews. There is a link to the interest sheet that will be shared at the end of the presentation if anybody is interested in sharing that with their youth or signing up themselves. It is only for TAY youth though, so 18 to 24-year-olds. Housing program. So LYRIC is one of San Francisco's 4 youth access points serving folks that are 18 to 24 that are experiencing housing insecurity in the city. We have access to housing programs with varying levels of support, including shelter, assistance with moving costs, transitional living programs, time-limited partial rental support, and permanent supportive housing. Upon program enrollment, youth will complete a housing assessment that will determine their eligibility for the different programs within housing. And then staff will collaborate with youth to create a course of action that's best suited for them. It's also really important to mention that our housing program also only serves youth starting at 18 to 24. So this might be a little bit tricky, but we do serve youth 18 to 24. But if you are already on their caseload, they can work with you up to 27. But if you are past 24, it's your first time here, they haven't been working with you, you will have to go to an adult access point. And we also do not serve families. That's important to state. They are also located in the Castro, though, again, at 566, and they have a program email, which is housingnavigation@lyric.org, and a QR code and a link that will direct you to their interest form. So we like to be very specific about who can qualify for the housing program because there's a lot of misconceptions about that. So although our target demographic is queer and trans BIPOC youth, all youth facing housing insecurity are welcome to join this program. Housing insecurity includes being actively unhoused. So if you're sleeping on the street or in a car, if you're at risk of losing housing within the next 14 days, or if you're fleeing abuse or violence, domestic violence and family abuse definitely count. Also for our queer youth, if you are not being supported at home in your identity, that also will qualify you for our housing program. Oops. So in order to qualify for services, youth must live in San Francisco or stay in the city at least 1 night per week. And we do have a link to the Youth Coordinated Interest Access Point page where you can learn a little bit more about these qualifications. And then last on our housing, we just want to clear up some common misconceptions. So we don't offer quick housing solutions due to the really high volume of youth experiencing housing insecurity in San Francisco. Participants should expect to wait weeks up to months to be placed in a housing program. The only rapid solution that we can offer is shelter if a bed is available that night. Our program also cannot pay back owed rent. We can't stop evictions. We cannot rehouse people who are already on a lease agreement. We like to be really clear up front what we can and can't do, just so that there are no unmet expectations of youth. And then moving on to our health access point. So the health access point, or HAP as we like to call it, is for transitional age youth. It's a collaborative of agencies working together to provide integrated services, equity-focused, community-centered, whole care person approach to HIV, HCV, and STD prevention programs. We welcome all ethnicities and populations within San Francisco with focused expertise on queer youth, of course. So we offer linkages to a few different types of care: primary care, gender affirming care, STI prevention education, STI vaccinations, PrEP navigation, and sexual health education. So when we say linkages, we are an access point, as the name implies. So a youth would get in touch with one of our HAP coordinators, and then from there, the HAP coordinator would direct them to the facilities that are matching their needs. They might help them navigate what their qualifications are, if they're eligible, and send them to that place. So one of our partners, as Taylor mentioned, is Dimension. So that is one of our partners, one of our points of access. They do provide primary care, gender affirming care as well. But they're not our only partner. We also partner with SFAF as well as Huckleberry Youth. So all of our organizations are coming together to really provide care for the whole person. And then you can access a HAP coordinator either by coming to LYRIC during our drop-in hours in 10 to 3:30, or by filling out our intake form. And even after you fill out that intake form, we do offer virtual services or phone appointments too, so you don't have to actually come into the space. Moving on to the youth advocates, or our YAs. So our YA, or youth advocates, are a catch-all for youth who need guidance through multiple different scenarios. The points that I've listed here are really just some of the things that a YA can help a youth navigate, but it's very important that I mention that our youth advocates are not case managers. They're resource navigators. They provide short-term support for youth. If a youth does need support beyond what our capacity allows, we can, of course, refer them somewhere else for ongoing case management services. But just a few of the things that we can support a youth with are gaining documentation, that can include a name change, that can include a gender change, support with job searches, interview preparation, employment and education referral, goal setting, navigating employment programs and different programs within the city, navigating resources related to job readiness, clipper cards, professional clothing, etc. And then also navigating resources for documented youth employment. So really, we don't put a limit on what our youth advocate can support you with, but they will only be able to support you with locating that resource. And from there, it would be the youth's responsibility to follow up on that. Okay. So that's all of our programming. Love to open it up for questions.
We have another quiet group. This is Pam. I liked seeing the Q groups and the referral and the it being anonymous by not having outside speakers. And I'm wondering, do you feel like you have a great network with CHWs across the city, or if someone had someone that wasn't connected to a specific child at a school, are you doing outreach with the schools to make sure that they're aware that that is something that's available if they have someone to recommend?
Yes, so we do outreach with the schools, but before our Q groups start, we make sure that we know what schools we're in. So a Q group, because they're ongoing, we have to make sure that we solidify a school first. So a wellness coordinator might reach out to our school-based program manager and let them know, hey, our school is really interested in having a Q group. And then from there, the manager would speak to them about what that could look like, and determine if we're fit for their school.
Okay.
That answer your question?
Yes, somewhat. I do wonder, is that limited to public schools, or do you ever have any inquiries from schools that are not public? Because I do know there is a population in other schools that don't necessarily have access, or might not know that you're available.
That's a really great question. I'm not sure I can completely answer it. We are limited to SFUSD schools.
Okay.
So if there's non-public schools within SFUSD, we can provide them with Q groups.
Great. I see Rebecca has her hand up.
Hi, can you, oops.
Rebecca, did you want to type your question if
Yeah.
we can voice to work?
Actually, is that better?
It's so much better. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying to set up my computer in my office. First, I just want to say thank you, Madison, for such a great, like, thorough presentation. I don't know how you jammed through all that info in 20 minutes, but it's really good. So it's kind of, I have a two-part question. One is sort of like, I do feel like there was really good information about what LYRIC does and doesn't do. So thank you for being like transparent about what you can and can't do as an organization. I think we don't do that enough, but also I'm wondering two things. Do you have like one pagers that you could share with this group about what services LYRIC has, only because in the theme of what I was saying in a group earlier is that I think that it's great that we're in this group and we're hearing from you, but I think like having something that I could share in places and like post it so that other people that I know that are interfacing with youth would be able to like see this. Like it's about sharing the information about the resources, because I think we do information and then the information about the resource kind of sits with us. And I'm not the one who needs to know about what you guys do. Like I want to be able to share that. So that's part one. And then my second question is really around like Tay, queer, gender non-conforming folks, and when they interface with sort of like the justice, and they are like getting arrested, and I'm curious if, I don't know if you guys have, or if like juvenile probation is willing to like work with you, or if you have kids that are also like dealing with sort of like incarceration. That's I think my question is if you see a lot of that, or if you guys work in that sort of realm. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rebecca. That's a great question. To answer the first part, we have had a few different one pagers in the past that had all of our program information, but we've had a few recent programming changes. So it's not been updated essentially. I can work on creating maybe a short document with just summarizing what's on this presentation, if that would be helpful. And then I also do have a document that I shared with Taylor and Pam that has links to different of our intake forms. So that is definitely something that can be shared with all youth and service providers as well. And if there is ever interest in like finding out what LYRIC is up to, we can always have our Lyric SF Instagram page is a really great resource, especially for youth because it's more youth facing. So I hope that answered that question. And then to the second part of your question, we do have a lot of youth who are just as involved. That's just the nature of working with youth who are requiring services. But we don't work with any specific programs or organizations that serve those youth.
I don't know if anyone else had questions about housing. I really appreciated that you lifted that you don't do rapid immediate housing. That is a common question, I think, throughout the gamut with people experiencing DV or homelessness. People will, randomly call and call immediately, like, I need a place to stay now. And it's like, unfortunately, San Francisco just doesn't have enough beds for something like that. And then even when they do, bureaucracy, paperwork has to be filled out and things need to be vetted and checked. And so thank you for the transparency around that. I'm just wondering what percentage of your intakes or people that are contacting you for housing. We're kind of starting to do a little informal survey. Our survivor advocate is starting to get a lot of people calling directly to us for housing. We don't have housing and we don't service housing. We can kind of help with a search, but we've never done housing or rapid housing. So I'm just wondering, how is that looking in terms of people contacting you all?
Don't have the actual data behind that, but we do have like a large portion of the youth who are interacting with Lyric through the organization come from housing. So that's their first entry point with us, and then they do other programs.
Okay. Thank you. And Rebecca has her hand back up.
Sorry,
No
does
worries.
anybody else want to go? Okay, Madison, I have a question about sort of, just thinking about San Francisco being a sanctuary city, and if Lyric, I mean, yeah, so this kind of is with housing and shelter, because do you guys see a lot of like age queer identifying youth coming here from like out of state or out of county trying to seek safety? And if you guys don't have that resource yourself, who are your go-to people to sort of how do we help queer identified young people get the help they need, when it isn't sort of like the service that you guys directly do? Do you guys have do you see it happening more? And I just have a question about that anyways, thank you. You know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, definitely know what you're saying, Rebecca. And unfortunately, that is the case that we see a lot of youth who are coming to us from out of state and even from more conservative areas within California that are seeking just a place where they can be themselves. So I wish I had the data. That's a little note for me for next time, but it is a large portion of the youth that we serve.
And that goes hand in hand with kind of DV here in San Francisco and homelessness. We have a lot of people who come to San Francisco and kind of think of it as the Mecca, and the services are abound, here in the city. And so we welcome them because we are a sanctuary city, but it does create a large impact.
Yeah. I did also want to add on to Madison Rebecca's thing and uplift that I have had friends who had to use Lyric because they arrived in San Francisco with family who are not willing to share their documentation. And we know that paper documentation is also a concern that we help families who are experiencing domestic violence with, so intimate partner violence as well as family violence. And obviously that's a barrier to youth accessing housing or employment if they don't have their ID, their birth certificate, their social security information. And that is something that Lyric is able to assist with. And that, quite frankly, I find youth aren't always upfront with because they don't necessarily understand how important that documentation is to starting their life as a young adult.
Francesca's written here, Lyric has been a great partner with the Hype Center, and we share a lot of the same young people. We're always an advocate and supporter of Lyric. Thanks for being here.
We love Lyric, we love Hype. Oh, Michaela wants to say something. I'm going to be quiet.
Hi, y'all.
Yeah,
Nice to see you guys. So I joined a little late, so I'm not sure if this was kind of talked about already, but I was just wondering because I know that like when it comes to domestic violence spaces, like safe havens or even LGBTQ, it can be a thing where people like protected or they need to feel safe walking into it. So I was wondering like how when you walk into you guys have like a building located somewhere that people like kind of just go into it. Yeah, so how like do you make them not only like know from words like you're safe here, but feel like what is that space like when you get there? Like how do they feel like I'm protected, I'm fine here, and this is like a resource or type of safe haven for me?
I love that question, Michaela. To answer your first question, so we're located at 566 Castro Street. It may not be super obvious that we are here. We do have lyric on the door, and we have like some youth art and like flyers up in the window. But in general, we try not to really broadcast our presence, and that is more of a safety thing. We have received bomb threats and threats of all kinds, as you can imagine, that an organization that serves the youth that we do would be receiving. So we don't always advertise it. But during after school drop-in, we'll have a sign out front that lets youth know that they're free to just come in. Often youth will just, knock on the door. And I think what really makes us feel like a safe space is that it's youth-led. So the way that our space looks, the programs that are offered, the curriculum, all of it is done with youth in mind, and then also youth telling us what they'd like to see. So just this past June, we did a youth community needs assessment where we just asked the youth to give us some feedback on the programming that we offer, the space itself, the events that we held, what worked, what didn't work. And we like to make sure that we are doing that regularly to make sure that we are meeting their needs and providing that safe space for them. Yeah.
Nice, thank you, Madison.
Yeah, I just wanted to share if anyone has been in the space, the front windows are frosted as well. And it's a walk into couches, which I know for all of us who work in office type spaces, sometimes we don't have the space to have that luxury, that lounge space. But it really does go a long way to making it feel more like a living room and less like, a social security type office space.
Did anybody have any questions like how do you partner with Lyric? Again, this is supposed to be us talking about networking and referral and ways that we can intersect and provide services. So if anybody has any of those types of questions, feel free to ask them here or make sure that you reach back out to Madison because that's important.
Hi, Madison. Thanks so much for sharing about Lyric. My question, so I'll give a little context. I work with Black women. I have an intergenerational programming for Black women who are living with HIV or accessing HIV prevention services. And the program is built to have like a mentorship component, an intergenerational mentor component. So a younger person might be paired with an older person in order to, I guess, help shape their advocacy within HIV. And so I'm not saying I won't say it's a problem. A challenge hoping to overcome is to have more representation of younger people. And since I know you all work with youth, what do you think the capacity would be for having a mentor that's older who wants to, I guess, learn more about HIV or HIV advocacy or what have you. So a couple of the women who I'm working with are queer. One who is a 70-year-old elder who recently came out as queer. And so in celebrating her, I just want to know, like, is there a space for that type of engagement?
Generally, no, unfortunately. Lyric typically does not allow adults into the space unless they are maybe a partner that wants to speak with us. They might be providing like a workshop, but in general, the space is youth only. I feel like that could be a missed opportunity just listening to what you're saying. But yeah, just typically and we don't allow like volunteers either with our youth. So
Thank you.
I'm going to say I was very intrigued by that question, and something to take back and think about is maybe some type of video chat with Black Box or something, because there is so much wisdom that older folk can give to younger people. And hearing someone coming out that late in life is, one, phenomenal, but two, imagine the struggles that they've experienced getting to that point to come out, and how that could possibly influence or help someone who's younger and in that struggle currently. Yeah.
Yeah, not only that, but like having the older people learn from the youth in terms of like, okay, like what helped you to step into your own, like what, yeah, just the share between both individuals, so that both individuals are getting like the most out of it. Yeah.
Sounds like something Ebony might need to host, and hopefully some youth from Lyric will step over to not encroach upon what they currently are doing. But I would love to see that type of a collaboration.
I would definitely love it if Ebony, if you would like to get in touch, maybe we could do a workshop, where we talk about the group that you're running, the mentorship aspect, and then that way we're kind of getting around it, but we're still really providing that resource.
I also wonder if there's an opportunity, just like kind of, going back to, queer youth coming to you guys to fleeing, and that sort of it. We know that there is a large percentage that there's an intersection that they identify as fleeing from some type of sort of like violence. And there are some of us that are here with you today, Madison, where, folks who are fleeing from violence, that's the core of what our work is, and that I think as we as organization, as we start to like connect those intersections, right? Because you guys are serving these youth, but they also have like a lot of like trauma and stuff. And how do those things intersect, and how can those intersections sort of like benefit Lyric? Not, like just us, but how can they benefit Lyric? I mean, I am an advocate, and when we were advocating for the city budget, I was right next to your ED as we were like demanding that the city funds Lyric, because you guys are a vital resource, that is addressing the needs of a particular population. I just see a lot of intersection, and it makes me sad that we work in silos, even if the population that we're serving is like unique. Like you guys are the experts, right? For working with particular population, but how I don't know. I think I'm just like going off on this tangent because I was furious when they were trying to cut the budget. It's sort of like, so like, how do we like get that data, Madison, where you guys do start to collect that data, and you could say, well, this percentage of our youth also identifies by as we sort of work together and, to sort of like collaborate to insist that places like Lyric are stay open and are funded and have everything that they sort of need. Sorry about the tangent. I just do, I think Pam is right about the need to be connected. And that was why I asked for the resource paper, because I feel like, I want to start to try to figure out how to break those silos and to support each other and whatever. So I'm done ranting. Sorry, you guys.
No worries. I see Sheba has her hand up.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you so much for having this conversation. I'm just pivoting off what Rebecca's sharing, and I think my question is more, do you tend to predominantly serve housed Tay youth or housed queer youth, or do you predominantly serve or do you serve both housed and those who are experiencing homelessness? Because I feel like that kind of gets to that need to bridge your work with some of the advocacy that's happening for TAY. Specifically, I know that, you know, for example, Lurkin Street has been really fighting and pushing for funding for food, because there's a huge population of TAY individuals who are experiencing food insecurity, and that's something that was not weighed in the budget process for this year, or something like expanding their Earn and Learn programs, which get more youth into job placements. So I guess, yeah, just do you tend to serve more housed youth or more folks who are experiencing homelessness? Thank you.
We serve, I would say, both populations. A lot of our TAY youth have experienced houselessness at some point, but not all of them. So a lot of our youth do come to us from the Q group. So they go to the Q group, now they come into the space, and as they age, they need an internship. Sometimes throughout their life, they might need so access to healthcare. They may need a youth advocate to support them. So we see youth from 12 up to 24, and during that time, they may experience a lot of different things. And the other way that we get our youth is just simply they're coming for housing, and then they might sign up for the career development program because they're looking for work. They may speak to a youth advocate because there's other issues and things going on in their life that need to be addressed. So it's kind of hard to boil it down to, are we serving housed youth or are we serving unhoused youth, just because we serve youth for so long. So at some point they may be housed, and at some point they may not be housed. But we do see a nice mix.
Did anybody else have any questions or comments? Because I know we're wrapping up lunch hour for some people, but this has definitely been an enlightening conversation, and we really appreciate having multiple orgs in the room to kind of like think about how to expand services or how we can intersect and work together.
Hi, I have a question, Krista. Have you had any youth that come in that are pregnant? And what does that look like for you guys, if you do?
I can't think if we've had youth who come in who are pregnant, but we've had youth in our programs who are mothers, younger mothers, and we've had youth actually bring their children to the space. It looks like if they're in our career development program and they're working as an intern, we have to give them a certain amount of grace because we understand that there's other things going on and they have a responsibility to their children. It looks like understanding that they may want to bring their children with them to the space, and even if it's it might feel awkward, there's no reason that they can't. You're more than welcome to bring your child to the space. They can draw and color, and we have a TV now. We didn't have a TV before, so they can watch something. So I can't think if we've had, specifically pregnant youth, but we definitely have had mothers.
Okay. How do we put referrals in if we have any participant or clients that are interested?
So it would depend on the program. The sheet or the document that I shared has links to all of our different programs that have intake forms. So you'll find the career development intern interest form, our YA intake form, our housing program intake form, our health access program intake form. We just have all those separated because they are separate programs. If a youth is just wanting to know about LYRIC or just would like to come by the space, they are always welcome to do so. So the best way would probably be to use one of those links if it's something specific. If it's something specific, a youth can just come by. If they feel more comfortable with you there, you can come by as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madison. If you're able to reshare also, if someone were wanting to get in contact with you directly or just about the youth program, what's the best way to do that? And then also just bouncing back to how we first connected. is wondering if you could share a little bit about how healthy relationships show up in your space.
Did you want me to put my email in the chat? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I was
Sorry,
trying to like
asking you
close
to
out
multitask.
my slides and how do healthy relationships serve in your space? I think the main way is that we have a set of community agreements that we like to make sure we're all following. But at the same time, we really like to make sure that we're giving each other grace. Some of the youth who come to us have things going on in their lives that are going to affect the way that they show up in the space. Sometimes maybe they're not showing up in the healthiest way. But we really like to make sure that we don't count people out when we give them chances and that we're supporting them in their learning. We also do have community groups that support knowledge about what a healthy relationship looks like and how they can be in one, or maybe how to address it if they are not in one. Our healthy relationship group has not started yet, but we do plan to have that this year. We also have an upcoming group for PDNC youth, for trans and gender nonconforming youth. That's actually planned to be a Dungeons and Dragons group, because we think that transgender nonconforming youth just need to have a good time. So I want to do a quick plug. We are looking for a dungeon master. If you know anyone, we will pay them. But we are looking for a dungeon master. But yeah, so we like to make sure that we're providing resources for education and also holding youth accountable to make sure that we're helping them be their healthiest self.
I just have one more question. This is something a little different. What if we have sort of like job postings we would like to send over to LYRIC that might be appropriate to use? Would that like go to you, or is there someone else over at LYRIC who sort of like job opportunities would go to?
So we are currently looking for a career development program manager. In the
Okay.
meantime, I am holding the career development program, but I will
Of course
put
you are.
I'll put that email in the chat. So that's checked by the career development coordinator and myself. You can also just send me an email. We actually had someone give me a call this morning, and then we'll share it with our youth as appropriate.
All right, well, I'm gonna ask Taylor to close us up because I already saw one of our interns had to hop and go to class, and I know we have some transitions going on with lunch. I also have a class that's intermingled in here, and they need to take break till 1:15 and come back to class at 1:15. So give it to you, Taylor.
Madison, thank you so much for joining us today. As Madison has extended that invitation, if you are between the ages of 13 to 24, I would highly encourage you to pop over to the Castro. They're right across from that Phil's, and check out that space for yourself. If before you bring a youth over there or bring a youth with you, obviously Madison said that offer stands if they feel more comfortable with you advocating, even if you are over 24. But thank you so much for sharing your space, your resources, the housing, the community development, and just the opportunity to work with a program that stays with youth through ages and stages rather than the acute services a lot of us provide. So thank you so much, Madison.
Thanks everyone for being here. Next
you.
month, we will be coming back with California's Victims Compensation Bureau to talk about how survivors of crimes can receive compensation, help with locks, help with very limited help with moving, but reimbursement for medical and things like that. So we'll be hearing from Cindy Kaiser next month. But thank you again, Madison, for being here today. And we will see everybody next month. And some of you I will see shortly. Take care.